now at 11. Temps soar in the Mile High City. There are health warnings in effect as Denver is forecasted to hit triple digits. Plus,
and if you broke the law, you can't say that.
Former President Trump responds to the bombshell Capitol riot hearing. What's next as the investigation goes on summer break? And a signature summer event returns to Denver, thanks in part to the generosity of Denver 7 viewers. The heat and the haze, that's the big story this morning. Thanks so much for joining us for Denver 7 News at 11. I'm Jason Grenauer. Live look there from our Mile High cam. Stace, you could see all of that haze. We're going to start with you with a look at this double trouble forecast, the high heat and bad air quality out there.
That's right, and temperatures are heating up quickly here across the Front Range. We're already in the 80s. We have 86 degrees downtown. 83 is what it feels like outside because of these lower humidity levels at 21%. At this point, we have partly cloudy skies, but we're headed into the triple digits today. 100 here in Denver, 101 for Greeley, and triple digits all the way down into southeastern Colorado. Even 80s and 90s for the higher elevations, but our average afternoon high should only be around 91. The record for today, though, is 102, so we won't be far from that record for this afternoon. We do have a heat advisory in effect for the Front Range and eastern Colorado as well, also out toward Grand Junction for temperatures around 100 degrees. So that does include Metro Denver and eastern Colorado all the way up into the northeastern part of our state. So as for our weather headlines, highs near 100 today, that heat advisory in effect for the metro, and more storms will be showing up this weekend. I'll let you know if we cool down coming up in a few minutes.
Stacey Donaldson, always on top of it. Stace, thank you. You can get 24/7 Colorado weather updates and live radar on your TV. Just download the free Denver 7 Plus app for your favorite streaming device. Team coverage now all day today. A team of volunteers is helping the National Weather Service take readings of this high heat. It's part of a study about how we can use infrastructure to reduce the impacts of extreme temperatures. Denver 7's Christian Lopez spent the morning with them.
Volunteers are out and about in Boulder this morning. They are trying to see what areas are being impacted the most by these hot and dry conditions, and they are using these sensors to do that. They are collecting temperature and humidity information. We actually followed the first group of volunteers that headed out this morning, and they attached one of these sensors to their window. They were recording the temperature, heat, and humidity, and they drove around for about 30 minutes. Other volunteers also helped on bicycle and on foot. They're looking for what they call heat islands. This will all help determine where it is best for the city to use natural climate solutions. These are things like trees, gardens, and green spaces in the places that need them the most. These things don't cost much, but they do a lot to help reflect the heat. Why was it important for you to be a part of this?
Obviously, it needs people to volunteer, and it sounded really cool, so I was happy to come out.
We walked around Boulder, and we took different data. We took temperature data and infrared pictures of different surfaces, so like asphalt, grass. We took pictures by the creek, and we were trying to figure out where was cooler and where was hotter.
This tent behind me, this is where volunteers are picking up their equipment. They are getting their routes assigned to them. And then as you can see, this is where they are coming back to turn in the information that they've gathered. And all of that data is going to take about 6 to 8 weeks to process before getting those results back. Reporting in Boulder this morning, I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
Now to the latest from our nation's capital. New overnight, former President Trump is hitting back at the testimony from the Capitol riot. That hearing that showed his refusal to intervene on January 6th. ABC's Jay O'Brien has the new details.
The House Select Committee investigating the deadly Capitol attack, telling a primetime audience former President Trump made a, quote, choice to violate his oath of office. The committee says Trump watched the riot unfold on TV in a White House dining room. Lifelong Republican members of his administration testifying they pleaded with Trump to step in, but he waited 187 minutes as the peaceful transfer of power was under siege before telling his supporters to go home.
And on January 6th, Donald Trump turned their love of country into a weapon against our Capitol and our Constitution.
The committee playing never-before-seen outtakes from this video, recorded a day after the insurrection. Trump struggling to criticize the rioters and unable to admit he lost the election.
This election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over.
Lawmakers focusing on what they call Trump's refusal to respond to the Capitol attack, never calling military leaders or law enforcement for help, even as rioters threatened the life of his own vice president, Mike Pence, and those charged with keeping him safe. The committee revealing anxious radio traffic from Pence's Secret Service detail.
We got smoke downstairs, step by.
An anonymous White House official identified as a national security professional testifying they heard Secret Service agents over the radio in fear for their lives.
There were calls to say goodbye to family members.
But that day, Trump tweeting this, accusing Pence of lacking courage for not refusing to certify Joe Biden's Electoral College victory as Trump demanded. Former Deputy White House Press Secretary Sarah Matthews saying the former president was pouring gasoline on a fire.
He should have been telling these people to go home and to leave.
Even after his supporters were driven from the Capitol, the committee saying Trump was unrepentant when speaking with a White House employee.
President Trump said nothing to the employee about the attack. He said only, quote, "Mike Pence let me down."
Last night, Trump and GOP allies lashed out at Sarah Matthews, who still works on the Republican staff of a congressional committee. Trump saying he didn't know her, a frequent claim of his. Meanwhile, the January 6th committee is promising this will not be their last hearing and that they will be back in September. Jay O'Brien, ABC News, Washington.
New this morning, we're hearing from a Colorado man who was a former spokesman for the Oath Keepers. Jason Van Tatenhove of Estes Park testified to the House committee last week. On MSNBC last night, he said the hearings aren't necessarily impacting extremist groups, but the legal consequences could.
The thing that will turn them off or turn them against Trump will be just, seeing what happens with the prosecutions and actually having some account, and that he's not doing anything to help. He's not pardoning. He's unable to do that now. But, we've seen this with Stuart Rhodes, with some of his legal clients where, he just ghosted them and he lost his license because of that. I think it's that type of thing that's going to reach those people more than anything.
Van Tatenhove says he's been recognized in public since his testimony. He says the reaction so far has been positive. Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters turned herself in overnight and was then released on a new arrest warrant for violating the terms of a protection order. Now, Peters sent an email pushing for a recount in her failed bid for Secretary of State, but she's banned from doing that since she was removed as an election official for allegedly tampering with voting equipment. Earlier this month, Peters also violated her bond by traveling out of state. New this hour, Colorado voters will be asked whether to legalize psychedelic mushrooms statewide in November. Initiative 58 got enough signatures to be on the ballot. The measure, if approved, would also create healing centers where the mushrooms could be administered. Well, much more on this debate tonight on Denver 7 News at 5. Well, tomorrow, Aurora will host a range of events to remember the 2012 movie theater shooting victims as well as survivors. There's a 5K to raise money for a scholarship fund. At 1:45, there's a formal reflection ceremony to read the names and honor the victims. At 3 p.m., there's a free community event with food and live music. And at 7:20, there will be a special art presentation with the theme Metamorphosis.
We chose the theme Metamorphosis this year because we feel like we've all gone through a metamorphosis from 10 years ago, from the tragedy and to where we are now. And we also think it relates to everyone really with COVID and everything that's been going on, so everyone can relate to it.
You can learn more and get the full schedule on the 720 Memorial Foundation's website. We have a heads up for hikers. Starting tomorrow, Eldorado Canyon State Park will require reservations on weekends and holidays from now through September 15th. Officials say it's to help control the crowds and guard against wear and tear on the trails there. Another big issue at Eldorado Canyon has been finding parking. Other counties have found different ways to alert people when their parks are full. Jefferson County has an app called Lot Spot, and Larimer County has a new text and email system. Well, next at 11, how your donations to Denver 7 Gives helped these dragon boats return to Sloan's Lake after a 2-year hiatus. And first it was staffing, then the supply chain. Now Colorado small businesses are facing crippling rent increases. Why some have decided to close up instead of cope.